Hey everybody, welcome to the channel, True Crime Stories. If you're new to the channel, please hit that like button and subscribe so you can hear more. Thanks for stopping by. This is the story of the abduction of Brian dos Santos Gomez. This happened on December the 1st, 2006 in Fort Myers, Florida. Brian was only 1 month old at the time that he was taken. He and his mother, Maria de Fatima Ramos dos Santos, were waiting with Maria's friend, Janice Duarte, at a bus stop when a woman drove up and asked for directions. She said she had been driving around trying to find her mother's house. Maria, Brian, and Duarte got on the bus, but the woman continued to follow the bus. When they got off of the bus, once again she pulled up and asked them for directions. She told them if they would come and get into the car with her that she would drop them off at their homes if they could help her find her mother's house. So this was probably a bad judgment call, but they ended up getting into the car with her. She told them that she was going to Tampa, Florida. The woman eventually dropped Maria and Janice off at a roadside near the Villago housing development on Three Oaks Parkway. She told them to wait there for 10 minutes and not to call anyone. She drove away with Baby Bryan.
For most of us, our life, our story, starts like this. Our earliest moments captured in a hospital room recording. But for Brian DeSantos Gomez, his life, his story, would soon be anything but ordinary. It was December of 2006, just 4 weeks after Baby Bryan was born. He vanished.
And after anybody look into us at this particular time, please bring that baby back.
And a sketch of the abductor and an image similar to the car that she was driving have been posted with this case summary. She was described as being a Hispanic woman around 30 years of age, about 5 foot 4 inches tall and kind of heavy. She had straight black hair and it was pinned up in a bun. This is probably irrelevant at this point, but she was wearing blue jeans and a black blouse. She spoke Spanish. She is believed to have been driving a black two-door Ford Explorer SUV with peeling window tint, and it was believed to have been around a 2000 to 2003 model. Maria stated that there was a diaper bag and a car seat in the SUV, indicating that the abduction had been planned.
Says they got into a black SUV when a Hispanic woman stopped to ask for directions. But things took a strange turn, and they drove south, stopping near a church off Three Oaks Parkway, when Maria says the woman pulled a knife, forced her out, and sped off with Baby Bryan inside. He was never seen again.
This case occupies an entire wall in the office of file cabinets.
FMPD cold case detectives Michael Iarossi and Richard Harrison have since taken on the investigation.
Does it sound bizarre like the whole scenario? Yes, it does.
But detectives say at this point they still have no reason to doubt the mother's story.
People steal babies, sadly.
And they are from a village in Brazil. And they paid human traffickers to bring them to the United States. So now when I hear this part of this story, I wonder if they still owed money to these people, because we hear quite a bit about that type of thing happening with people paying people to bring them to the United States, and they kind of become indentured to those people. Human trafficking, they end up owing them some type of debt, whether it is money or something in the flesh. So this could have played a role in this. And I guess the FBI got involved in that. Authorities believe that Bryan was abducted in retaliation. Now, see, that's what I just said, that they owed money to these traffickers, these smugglers, who helped them bring them into the United States, and this was payback because they didn't. And they probably figured they could get a whole lot more money out of a newborn baby boy. So, an enforcer for one of the smuggling rings was detained in connection with Bryan's abduction, but police could find no evidence to link him to the baby. He was deported back to Brazil and was not charged. Bryan's parents admitted to their illegal status and to owing hundreds of dollars to smugglers, but denied that that was the reason the baby was taken. Was this whole story made up? Did this baby get sold to or given to these smugglers as payment? That's a theory that some people have. I've read quite a bit on Reddit and Web Sleuths, where a lot of people tend to believe that that could have been. And the threat from these smugglers could have been enough that they just handed the baby over without any kind of fight. But investigators later came to believe that Bryan's kidnapping was a random crime. After his abduction, a Fort Myers, Florida woman went to the police and said that she had been walking on the sidewalk with her grandchild when she was approached by a woman in an SUV, matching the description of the one given by the police. And this woman also asked her for directions. This was in the same area where Bryan was taken, and this occurred only hours after his abduction. So was this just a child trafficking ring? The police may believe that this was random, but I have trouble believing that this was random, knowing that the parents owed money to these smugglers. And just because they weren't able to link that man that was the head of this ring of smugglers doesn't mean that he wasn't involved or the people that worked for him weren't involved. The grandmother who said that she was approached and Bryan's mother both picked the same person out of a photo lineup. The woman was later cleared of suspicion, but investigators believe the two incidences were related. They believe that Bryan's abductor had also accosted other people in the neighborhood trying to get a baby. It could have been a woman who just wanted a baby of her own. But honestly, I'm going to stick with my original theory that this had something to do with this smuggling. The baby, the grandmother who was approached, this could have been just a way for this woman and these smugglers to make more money to sell another child.
This age progression photo was released around the time Baby Bryan would have turned 14. A new one is being made now that he'd be 18 years old. Detectives are again meeting with Baby Bryan's parents, who still live in the area. And maybe most importantly, they're working to get a clearer version of this. This key piece of evidence, the voice of the suspected kidnapper. Police say she made phone calls while Maria was in the SUV to try to convince her. The messages were left on a phone at this pole shed in Fort Myers. If detectives can figure out why this number was dialed, it could help break open the case. 18 years after he went missing, one thing remains. The belief that Baby Bryan is out there somewhere, an adult who now deserves to know the truth.
Bryan's parents went on to have 2 more children following his abduction. The husband was arrested for driving without a license and was given over to the custody of immigration authorities, and he was pending deportation. He was released from detention under a supervised order, and he remains to be seen. It's not. They don't say here whether or not he was ever deported or if he just kind of went off into the United States somewhere and got lost in the crowd of the very many people who have orders to be deported. Maria stated that she was going to try to get visas for herself and her husband. Now, a U visa, this is what she said she was going to try to get. Now, this is a visa that is for victims of violent crimes, and it allows undocumented immigrants to remain in the United States for up to 4 years. Bryan's disappearance remains unsolved, and his kidnapper has never been identified. Authorities believe she may have been from South America or Mexico. And I'm going to just once again put in my own thoughts on that before I end this. I do believe that this really probably had more to do with them owing these people money than it had to do with some random woman out there just wanting a baby. And I mean, that does happen, and we have heard of that happening, but now 18 years has passed. This young man, if he's still alive, and if he's still regardless of whether he's still in the United States or not, he may at some point enter his DNA into some GED match or have reason. Maybe if he ever was to become arrested or anything, his DNA might be entered into CODIS. And I don't know if the parents or the siblings have ever given their own DNA, but maybe at some point in the future this child will be found, and maybe the truth will one day come out about how he ended up. Maybe he probably doesn't even know, like I said, if he is still alive and he didn't become a victim of child sex trafficking. And if he just maybe, like the man in the other story that I did recently, who was reunited with his family after being abducted 70 years. He was 4 years old when he was abducted, and 70 years later, one of his nieces searches GEDmatch, puts her DNA into GEDmatch, and it comes up a match to this man. And they realized that this was their family member who had been abducted as a little boy. So it's possible that this case could one day be solved.
If you have any information that could help detectives, contact the Fort Myers Police Department or Crime Stoppers.
Before you go on to watch this next video, I just wanted to say there's not a whole lot of images. I could not find any images of the victim, which is fine. This is a very young person, and I didn't find any images of them. I found only one photo of the criminal here, and the person that was accused in the story. So I just wanted to let you all know that before you go ahead to watch, that it's not full of photographs. Now, just like in the story of Baby Bryan being abducted, this story is very sad, and it just goes to show that not all dangers to children are from strangers. Sometimes the danger comes from within their own little world, and especially when they're only a 3-month-old baby who has no ability to take care of themselves. This is the story of the tragic death of 3-month-old Faith Nichols. Now, Faith was only 3 months old, and she was left unattended in a car at Dodge's store and the Yes Dear Bar on Fort Campbell Boulevard. Now, this was in Tennessee. This was in Clarksville, Tennessee. Now, Faith's mother, Courtni Nichols, age 24, was booked into Montgomery County Jail, where she was held without bond on first-degree murder charges for the negligent death of her child. According to police, Nichols left the child in the back seat of the car, which was parked outside Dodge's store, shortly after 10 a.m. Nichols reportedly went in and out of the Yes Dear Bar several times and went to another bar with friends, leaving the child alone in the vehicle. 6 hours later, EMS and police responded to a 911 call about a baby that was found unresponsive. And the baby was rushed to Gateway Medical Center, where the infant was pronounced dead. According to the arrest report written by Detective Tim Anderson, the child's temperature was 103.8 degrees. Courtni Nichols admitted to leaving her baby in the car, which was not running and had no air conditioning turned on, while she went bar hopping. According to state law, a murder charge may be applied in the case of a death committed in the context of aggravated child abuse or neglect. It is against state law, Class B misdemeanor, to leave a child under age 7 alone in a vehicle without another person, or if the vehicle is running or if the keys are inside the car. To leave a child unattended in a car can result in abuse and neglect charges for any person who leaves a child under the age of 18 alone in a car. Nichols' prior record includes pending charges including driving under the influence and multiple charges of driving after her license was revoked and driving without insurance. She had left the baby in the car for however many hours. I think they said 6 hours, starting at 10 a.m. So in the story of Faith Nichols, her mother was facing life in prison because she had left the child in the car and the child had died. But I was able to find an article stating that the mother, Courtni Lee Nichols, had been charged with second-degree murder and neglect, and she was sentenced to 18 years. I'm just going to read this. This is from the trial. It says that Detective Tim Anderson was the last witness to take the stand in the murder trial of Courtni Nichols. He told the jury that Nichols gave 2 different stories on July the 8th about the baby. First, she said that her daughter had not been in her care prior to her death and that the child had been with the grandmother. She says she went to Dodge's chicken store to drop the child with the babysitter and found that she wasn't breathing. Nichols gave, this is very similar to the Casey and Kaylee Anthony story in Florida. Nichols gave a different statement later, admitting that she left Faith in the car while she socialized. Now, according to someone who worked in the bar, she says that at one point she even went out and changed the baby's diaper. And but in another story, she says that she forgot that she'd left the baby in the car. I think she knew the baby was out in the car, and she admitted that she left the baby in the car while she socialized in the Yes Dear bar. She wrote a 3-page statement stating that she left her parents' house at around 10:15 and went to Yes Dear to check her schedule. Now, did she work at this bar? Faith was sleeping in the back seat, so I had a beer and chatted for a few minutes, she said. I went out and checked on her, and she says she went out and checked on the baby at around 10:45, and the baby was sleeping. So she went back inside and had another beer. She said that she went out and fed her daughter and changed her diaper, and when she went to check on her every 30 minutes, that the child was always asleep. So this child slept for an entire 8 hours, 6 hours, and at no point waking up sweaty, hot, miserable from the heat inside this car as the day went on. They said it was 97 degrees that day. So they got surveillance tapes obtained from Dodge's chicken store that showed that someone went to Nichols' car one time at about 11 o'clock to check on the baby. So her testimony that she was going in and out of the bar every 30 minutes or so and checking on the baby was untrue. She went out one time at 11. The baby wasn't found until almost 5 p.m. Now, this guy named Richard Watts, who was a friend of hers, came into the bar, and he testified in court that he and Nichols left the Yes Dear bar, walked past the car, and went to another bar called the Speakeasy at Fort Campbell Boulevard. Watts testified Nichols drank a beer in the Yes Dear and Speakeasy, but that she was not drunk. At no point did she ever mention Faith or say that the baby was back in her car at this parking lot. And Tabitha Parker, who was her co-worker and the babysitter, testified that she called 911 when she picked Faith up and noticed that she wasn't breathing. So now, my guess is what they're saying is that Courtni Nichols, the mother, left the bar with this Richard Watts, went to a different bar, drank, came back to her car later that day, got into her car, and went to drop the baby off with this Tabitha Parker, who was the babysitter, and she noticed that the baby wasn't breathing. And it just says that she was charged with first-degree murder, but the jury ultimately convicted her of second-degree murder and neglect. And she received 18 years. So Faith Nichols, because of her age, was helpless. She may have been able to raise her arms and cry, but Courtni Nichols made the decision to drive around with little Faith in the car and made the decision that she needed a break. She made the decision to leave the child strapped in the car while she went into the bar to drink, left the bar, leaving the child behind, and went to another bar to drink. She knowingly and intentionally left the baby in the car, and the jury was asked to consider that she left the bar at 11 a.m. to get a pack of cigarettes. So she went to the car, got a pack of cigarettes out of the car, and reached across the baby to get the cigarettes out of the bag. So her testimony her testimony to police when they arrested her was that she forgot. This is what she first said, that she forgot the baby was in the car. But she knew the baby was in the car, so she later changed that story. And so people testify that Courtni was not a monster. This was the people that testified on her behalf, that her dad was a firefighter and that her mom was a clerk in the courthouse. And she had just gone through a divorce, and she had been going through a lot. So it goes on to say in the defense that her mother and father said that Nichols said she got dressed to go to a job interview, and she cleaned up the baby and headed to the Yes Dear Lounge. I went to get my schedule and to find out if I still had to cover for one of the other bartenders. I didn't go there to drink or bar hop, she said. Once she got inside and began to socialize, she lost track of time. I always brought her inside with me before, so she had taken the baby in there before. Maybe someone said to her, you can't be bringing your baby in here with you to work or to socialize. She said at 11:11 a.m. she went to the car and she did not notice her daughter's car seat and forgot that the baby was in the car seat. She went to get her cigarettes. I didn't remember that she was in the car, she said. But in earlier testimony, she says that she went out every 30 minutes to check on the baby. So this is probably done a lot of damage to her in the mind of the jury. I would think that they would have taken that into consideration, that she blatantly lied about knowing the child was in the car. It says that when she discovered that the baby wasn't breathing, Tabitha Parker says she was hysterical. She called 911, and they were in the waiting room at the emergency room when they came out and told them that the baby had died. I never should have left her in the car, Nichols said. Now, this was testimony by witnesses that she said this. And the autopsy showed that Faith's stomach was empty, that she had not been fed, Now, we know the baby was in the car for 6 hours. She at one point told the police that she had given the baby a bottle and changed her diaper. But we know that's not true because on the camera, it only showed her going out to the car when she went out to get her cigarettes at 11:10 a.m. The baby had been in the car for close to an hour at that point. So it goes on to say that she was sent to prison for her child's death. She was sentenced to 18 years. And the judge, John H. Gassaway, told her that she was found guilty of aggravated child neglect and second-degree murder. And they say that Nichols cried during the sentencing and said that she plans to get her college degree while she's in prison. And I may sound like I'm being judging this woman harshly, but her child never got that opportunity. And maybe at this point she has felt remorse for that. I hope that she has. I hope that she has felt some type of, or asked for some type of forgiveness. And maybe I shouldn't put those of my own personal thoughts into that, but that's just the way that I feel. And I hope that she does get that forgiveness if she asks for it, and that she does feel remorse for what happened. Her little baby was never given a chance. She's going to be 42 or 43 years of age when she gets out of prison. She may already have gotten out. She was sentenced in 2011, so she's been in jail. It's been 13 years since she was sentenced. That's the story of this little child and these little children taken from their lives. Thanks for watching.